We especially appreciate that you have provided us a wonderful community and ask that you would give us wisdom as we make important decisions regarding its land use. In your Son's name we pray. Amen. And now pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I call this meeting of the Spotsylvania County Planning Commission to order. We have 100% attendance, thus a quorum. Announcements.
Mr. Chairman, the only announcements tonight are that on December 2nd, we will have 2 cases. There'll be the Spring Grove rezoning case and comp plan amendment on that night. So.
Wonderful, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of November 4th. Everyone should have had a chance to review them. Were there any corrections? Changes? Very well, then I'll entertain a motion that they be adopted as submitted.
So moved.
Motion's been made and seconded. Let's proceed to a vote. And I'd like to clarify, a moment ago when I said we had unanimous attendance, I apologize. I was wrong. We nonetheless do have a quorum with 6 people present, and the vote is?
Me.
It is unanimous. The minutes are approved. Is there unfinished business before the commission? Seeing none, then the next item is a review and approval of a plat, P15-0003, Thorburn Estates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Floor monitor, please. This is a preliminary plat that shows a subdivision of a total of 59 lots on 171 acres of residential 2 property, which was rezoned with proffers in December of 2014. The preliminary plat application was reviewed by the Technical Review Committee on July 16, 2015. At that time, the applicant was provided a complete comment letter outlining the necessary revisions to meet code requirements. To date, the applicant has not submitted a revised plan addressing those comments and has requested extensions based on the need for additional studies for the soil work on the property. In order to reset the review clock, staff is requesting the Planning Commission deny the preliminary plat, noting the following items necessary to proceed with approval. And if you'll bear with me, I'm going to list those items out for the record. Planning comments is sheet 4, notes the HOA will maintain parcels A, B, and C. The proffers state the HOA will also maintain the cemetery, which is identified as parcel D. They need to revise that note. They need to provide a conservation easement and at least a 10-foot access easement to the existing cemetery. They need to confirm all lots have at least 10,000 square feet of buildable area exclusive of floodplains, wetlands, RPA, steep slopes, and drain fields. They must show the setback lines on each lot. Add the standard note that's provided in our preliminary plat packet for VDOT drainage and the GPS tie-in standard note. They must add a note regarding the demolition of the existing buildings on the property. They must identify the 25-foot buffer along lots 47 through 50. Along lots 1 and 3, a 20-foot wide landscape easement will be placed. They must confirm whether these easements will be put in place on all other landscape buffer and preservation areas, and note all proposed easements on the plat. Also, a public utility and trail easement is noted on lot 40, and we need confirmation if this is existing or proposed. The Chesapeake Bay Division noted that not all parcels show drain fields with 100% reserve. They need to provide more detail. On sheet 5, show a sample drain field schematic that explains the drain field and shows the blank section as 100% reserve. Fire commented that they needed to identify fire hydrant distances. GIS address assignment commented that South Abbey and North Abbey are not available street names. They need to come up with alternatives. The Health Department commented that no AOSC signature or statement on the plat was shown and no well locations are shown. They've asked to define the wetlands above the county's drinking water reservoir are not protected features. They've noted that some drain field sites do not appear to support the proposed designs, and soil work and certifications are, they need to confirm that those certifications are by a currently licensed AOSC. So with that being said, tonight, if the Planning Commission does deny the preliminary plat this evening, it will reset the review clock for the applicant to address these technical comments so that they can finalize their preliminary plat. And following this meeting, we would follow up with a letter to the applicant stating those revisions that are necessary for preliminary plat approval.
So will there be an additional fee to the applicant?
No, sir.
Any other questions? So were we expecting to hear from the applicant too this evening? So in other words, is the applicant are they already aware that this is the staff recommendation and that we're not going to be sued for refusing to approve this?
They had requested an extension, and the code doesn't
really require
provide
for
for
it.
an extension, so they were notified that this was the process that we had to take to reset the clock for them.
Okay. So then the chair will entertain a motion that unless there's questions or comments, the chair will entertain a motion that the plat be rejected, and that when the letter goes to the applicant, that the rejection reflects the notes that are included that you've noted for the record, starting with the first item under planning and pretty much the whole 2 pages. Is there such a motion?
Please, the chair, I'd like to make that motion.
Certainly.
Second.
And the motion second. Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, then let's proceed to vote. A vote yes denies approval of the plat. The motion is unanimous and thus rejected. Next, we have a special use permit application and public hearing, SUP 15-0006.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. For the record, Patrick White, Planning Department, Spotsylvania County. As you mentioned, this is SUP 15-6, also known as the Old Country Store. If I can have the floor monitor, please. This is a request for a special use application for a convenience store in an RU zoning district. It's at 6150 Plank Road on 2 tax parcels. It's located in the Chancellor Voting District. It has approximately 612 acres. I'm sorry, 6.12 acres. This is an aerial depicting the property with a red dot. You'll notice that the blue outline does contain 2 parcels. The little orange arrow depicts the intersection of Plank Road and Andorra Drive, about half a mile to the east. The location's in a rural but historically sensitive area. It's within the primary settlement or primary development boundary. It is within the Chancellorsville Battlefield Historic District, the Lick Run Battlefield Historic District, and is across the street from the first day at Chancellorsville, aka John Mullins Farm. As mentioned before, it is zoned RU, and it has a future land use designation of open space as well as low-density residential. The open space land use designation was apparently mapped coincident with the boundary of the Lick Run Battlefield Historic District. So it has a split future land use designation. Zooming in a little closer, you can see that the property is improved currently with a small house located on the east side and there's a little shed behind it and another larger shed on the west side.
Patrick, those are abandoned, correct?
There does not appear to be anyone living in the house, and the shed's uninhabitable, as is the other one. So to my knowledge, yes, there's no one there. This is a photo from the westernmost entry to the site right now, looking west towards the western open median. You'll notice that there's a substantial elevation change along that median. This is a view from that median, now looking back at the site. This is a view from that same first westernmost current driveway entrance looking to the east. We're now on site, looking to the east. You'll see the house and the shed, a little volleyball area. This is a photo to the south and a photo looking west. The generalized development plan for the GDP contains or proposes a 9,000 gross square foot store. Of that, the applicant notes that 6,750 are usable square feet. The structure has a 1,500 square foot covered porch. They're seeking a request for a 240 square foot ice cream stand, and there are 113 parking spaces on site. Accessing the site is via a right turn only. There will be a 200-foot tapered entryway. There's 650 feet of visibility looking westward to allow for good visibility when exiting the site. And the applicant has provided two ingress-egress easements to connect to properties to the east and west, should the properties next door desire to connect. Off-site, the applicants have provided a 200-foot U-turn taper to the west. Staff is recommending a condition of an additional 200-foot U-turn taper to the eastern median. And staff is recommending a condition for a 6-foot trail with split rail fence in the right-of-way immediately to the north. Building setback 90 feet. That's 10 feet more than the rural HCOD requirement. The property will be screened with a street buffer C per code. There's also an HCOD requirement requiring additional trees in the front buffer. Staff is recommending that we allow the applicant to increase the size and the height of the trees that they are planting rather than doing additional small and medium plantings. You'll notice that these are large and medium plantings in that front buffer. An extensive buffer is being put in on the west where a transitional screening 2 is required. To the east, a transitional screening 2 is also required, but only 50% of it. Most of that will be managed by existing vegetation. That existing vegetation wraps around to the south, and you probably observed that in the previous photos. Also on site is a drain field. The property does not currently have sewer services. It does have quite a large drain field. It will connect to the county's water system. The proposed building is approximately 29 feet tall. It is a false front structure with a standing seam metal roof. The portions of the facade, the front facade that are below the porch, will have a wood siding, which was a red cedar wood. Those above will have a fiber siding. The side will be fiber siding, or is proposed to be fiber siding with a stone veneer on the bottom. In the bottom right-hand corner is a depiction of their sign that's approximately 10 feet tall, designed to match the structure. Some renderings provided by the applicant, also a rendering of the Battlefield Creamery. I will note that the Battlefield Creamery rendering happened before the latest revision to these, to the general stores rendering, so there is a material difference there. It is safe to say, and it will be conditioned in their GDP, it does include the language that the creamery or the ice cream store will match the facade of the proper Battlefield Country Store. There was a community meeting on August 27th. 20 people signed in and attended. Most notably, their concerns were related to transportation, traffic, lighting, impacts on historic resources, and the commercial development of properties west of Andorra Drive. The applicant did make some changes to their plans. They did include on their GDP a commitment to dark sky lighting, reduced pole heights. They provided originally a 200-foot U-turn taper, and staff has requested that be upgraded to a U-turn taper on both sides. And the entryway taper, the trail and split rail path, we believe will make the site look a little more historic. They also applied these exterior finishings, including the hardy board, the wood board siding, the stone veneer, etc. So staff found that on the whole, the proposal does increase retail options within the primary development boundary. They've proposed a product that architecturally and screening-wise, we believe blends with the historic area. We believe that we've mitigated traffic impacts through these tapers, generally meets the special use standards, and is generally consistent with the comp plan. There were 6 conditions in your staff report. I won't read them verbatim, but I will briefly display them here for you. Staff's received 2 emails in support. Staff also received feedback from the National Park Service opposing the project, with the note that if it were improved, they recommend additional lighting, landscaping, and parking setbacks, and a letter from the Department of Historical Resources affirming the applicant's consultant's Phase 1A cultural resources study, which is included in your packet. I know the applicant would like to speak, but I will stand by for any questions prior to that moment.
If it pleases the chair, Patrick, can you go to the aerial photo for me?
Yes, sir.
One more. Show me where the entrance is to the Lick Run Convenience Center.
Right here.
And the entrance to the site is where?
That is out in the middle.
Just show me, stay on the aerial photo if you would.
Going back?
Yep, just stay on that for me.
This one. Right
in
around
that
here, sir.
general direction, okay. Immediately to the west, there's an open lot, then there's another use. What is that?
There is a church, there's a house immediately to the west, and then a church. I believe that's the Lutheran church, but I could be mistaken.
And then to the east, there's a wooded area and then an open area. Is that the other church and school?
Right here.
Okay. The abutting lot to the south, I assume these people here are from that subdivision. That open space, is that a dedicated open space?
Not to my knowledge, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
So, Patrick, on this 6-foot trail that I presume is parallel to Route 3, since there's nothing to the east or west, would this be unconnected to anything?
That is correct, sir. It would not be connected to anything.
I don't see the necessity for a trail that doesn't connect to anything.
I'm not sold on that condition, sir. It was one of the recommendations from some other colleagues of mine, and I support them, and that's why it's included.
Okay. Any other questions? Then we'd certainly welcome the applicant's comments, especially if they want to talk about this trail. The trail to nowhere. Yes, please come on up.
Good evening. I'm Al Esch, the owner of the country store. Forgive me for being a little nervous tonight because it's a room full of people that I'm not acquainted with too much, except for Mr. Thompson there and Patrick and Leon. We've been together, so this is a new place for me. If I may, I'd like to speak a little bit about myself. 2009, we opened a 1,500 square foot location in Culpeper on Route 29 in a small little place there. And we outgrew that in about 3 years or 4 years. We outgrew that, and some land became available at our local site where we are now. And we did that construction in March of 2014, and so we've been open there for a little bit over a year. We're known for our baked items, our pies and cookies, cakes and breads, snacks, flour, sugar, milk, eggs, and also for our, as some would call it, Dagwood sandwiches. We, our vision and who we want to be is sort of our neighborhood mom and pop place that you would have been accustomed to seeing years ago. We're not Walmart. We're not that. It's me and my brother-in-law are the owners of the company. Most of the items that we carry are from Amish and Mennonite owned and operated suppliers out of Ohio and Pennsylvania. We would bring about 20 or 25 jobs to the area. We have some entry-level jobs for kids out of high school. We hire a few of those, and we also have some long-term career jobs available as well. I don't know, I guess that's all I have for myself. I'd be happy to answer any questions that anybody has. Any of the technical questions I would direct to Roddy from ATCS, but anything with the architectural and anything else from the site, I'd be happy to answer those questions.
I've got a couple of questions for the engineer if he wants to step up. On your, Patrick, if you still have control, can you go to the site plan? On your vehicles per day, how was that calculated? Was that through the ITE manual, or do you have site data that?
Yes, it's through the IT data, and Mr. Ash also has a vehicle count on his current store, and the IT was the worst-case scenario.
So what would be what's his actual count?
Last week, we had 3,765 customers or something in 6 days. So it was about 612 a day.
Okay, so it's less than what you've calculated
Right, the
for it
860.
here. Okay, very good. Is there an opportunity to reduce, or would you want to reduce your footprint area based off your actual count? Can we
The
do
building
that?
footprint? Reduce the building footprint, or?
Yeah, no, the parking, not the building, the parking.
Well, right now, you know, once we get into the actual site plan design, we actually may lose more parking to try to make the, stormwater management work with the new regulations.
So your parking is based off your floor footprint area.
That and an
then
additional, yes.
All right, back on the site plan again, Patrick, if you would. Can you show me where the sign is going to be located?
Sure, it's on the,
I didn't see it on the
it's in the
plan.
west side corner.
Got
It's
it.
shown on the landscape plan, I believe.
All right, got it.
Yeah, we
And-
had it in the middle, but with all the trees there, it's kind of not visible, so we put it on the west side.
All right, is that sign going to have a light? Okay, very good. I would like to, I support Mr. Stuber here with this trail. I'm not sure what the point of that is, but anyway, I think that's all the questions I have for the moment.
Was it your desire to have a trail, or?
No,
No, I didn't think so.
yeah, our original submission did not have a trail because we agree that it's not connecting to anything right now.
Right.
So there's been several discussions on that trail.
Yeah, a lot of times citizens see these trails in front of commercial property, and a lot of times they'll come up and say, well, why did VDOT pay for that? Or why, they question this, and obviously VDOT didn't. You all would be paying this, and it gives government sometimes a bad appearance that it foolishly builds things. But if you wanted to build one, we're not going to certainly stop you, but I don't know that it's necessary.
Speaking of that,
Speaking of that,
we received notice late last week that VDOT is studying the Route 3 corridor in this area. And one of the things we're hearing they're going to recommend is the closing of the western median, depicted on your screen right now. Tonight, probably at this exact moment, they're talking about that at the Transportation Committee meeting. We are interested in hearing what they have to say. I do understand from VDOT's David Beal, their land use engineer, that they would like to see this site have that median closed. I spoke with Al about this before, and he had relayed to me that he wasn't that opposed to closing it, as there's another U-turn taper further to the west, another U-turn area further to the west, which already has that 200-foot taper. So in the interest of full disclosure, that western median depicted on screen could be recommended to be closed by VDOT. That study goes to the Board of Supervisors in the near future. We're interested in hearing what they have to say.
Okay.
Speaking about the VDOT issue, it was something that Patrick and I talked about quite a bit, and then my concern was that I don't build the turn lane and then it be closed 6 months later. And like he said, as being a full disclosure, and we're just kind of concerned about, if we do have approval and everything, and when we go to do our site plan, how do we address that? And who controls whether it closes or not, was some of our questions. And so I guess I wanted to put it on the record that I'm not opposed to putting that turn lane in there and doing what needs to be done for the sake of traffic, but I don't want to do it and then lose it.
Right.
And speaking of the trail, I'll put this out there, and I spoke to staff about this as well, and I was willing to go along with that recommendation for the sake of doing what needs to be done. But I would be happy to commit to putting that trail in if there's other businesses beside me and that it connects to somewhere. I'm not opposed to doing that, and I understand where staff is coming from too, and the idea that if you don't do it right away, that it may never get done. So I would prefer not to build it, but if I must, I will.
Okay. So the issue of the median turn being closed, how should we address that?
Mr. Chair, that study is in its very early stages, and so at this point, VDOT doesn't have any firm recommendations. It's part of the access management study that they're doing on Route 3. So at this point, I think it's premature to base any decision on a study that's getting its first report tonight. It is something that they recommended, but given the fact there's going to be commercial development here, and that would be a safety feature for cars that would have to make a U-turn to go west, that's why the request was made to add that turn lane there. So I think if it was installed, and at some point VDOT would probably reconsider closing it because it is a safety feature. What it would allow is for traffic to get out of the left turn lane and into the median break safely and not impede traffic.
So realistically, given how fast they go, at the very, very least, this is, 3 or 4 years away from them closing it? If they were in a rush?
It could be that long.
Yeah.
It very well could be that long.
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you for your answers. And then let's open the public hearing for the application. The public is encouraged to come up and share their opinions. On the dais there's a little black box that has 3 little lights. The green light starts off, and if you are representing a group, you'll be granted 5 minutes to do that. Please identify the group and your name and where you live. And then if you're representing yourself and your family, you're granted 3 minutes, and the green light comes on. Then when there's 1 minute left, the yellow light in the middle turns on, and then after the 3 minutes or 5 minutes, the red light comes on. And that's when we would hope that you would have had enough time to address the commission. So, did anyone sign up for the...
Yes, sir. I have 2 people signed up. The first is Billy Braswell, followed by Sadie Dye.
Mr. Chairman, I'm Billy Braswell from 12215 Delway, Creekside. And first thing I'd like to do is, I am the chairman of the Architect Committee of Creekside Subdivision. I want to go on record to say we are very unhappy that we were not notified by the applicant that he was going to build this country store. We are probably, as the crow flies, 1 mile away. If you go by car, 2. But we were not notified. In fact, we are told about last week. So we're way behind this. And this subdivision is over 50-some houses. So we were not very happy about it. All right, sir? I have talked about to your planning people about it, that we were not informed. We could have told the applicants our concerns, but we were not notified. I think that's a shame. All right, sir?
It's understood.
We have fought development on Highway 3 west of Andorra for years and years. The biggest fight, as all of you can remember, is the Ashley Farm. We worked very hard to fight that because it was right across from us. And thank goodness we prevailed. And we're still fighting development that's coming west of Andorra. We moved to the country for one reason. We moved to the country for peace and quiet, away from stores, away from shops, and we don't want a part of it. We paid a lot of more money to go out further west, but we made that choice. And we don't like when development starts moving away from us, towards us, to do away with our peace and quiet. Our subdivision received a shaft probably 6 months ago when that fire station came there. We were never told about that fire station. And it is at the entrance of our subdivision. Supervisors heard from us. They heard from us loudly. But again, it was a prime example of the county doing something without notifying the concerned citizens who were affected about something. So that's twice it's happened to us at Creekside, sir. Twice. And we're not happy about it. Now, I can understand why the applicant cannot go further east for 1 mile to Harrison Crossing. The infrastructure is in place. The parking is in place. Why cannot he go 1 more mile east where he should go? I know he wants to be a country store in the country. I have nothing against him, but we don't want a country store in the country. We don't live in Culpeper. We don't live in Orange. We live in a little peaceful, quiet community. We want to keep it that way. And not only that, you have 173 parking spaces. How's the traffic going to come out of there with Route 3 today or the way it is? We have to wait, and we don't want to traffic light our subdivision, so I'm very patiently waiting to get on Route 3. So what's going to happen next is you're going to put a stoplight there because all these customers are going to get unhappy and call all their supervisors to put a stoplight there. And we don't need any more stoplights. You know how many we got now on Route 3? When I lived here, there used to be 1. Now there's 14. Then you'll probably give another one there. Especially if you close that medium, as you talked about VDOT's going to do. Another complaint I'd like to offer you, okay, and I do it gently, all right? The yellow sign has been posted probably about 2 weeks. You cannot drive on Route 3 and stop and read that yellow sign. Because if you think you can, you're not thinking very well because you get run over. You know what I'm talking about? You saw the picture of that little yellow sign. So you can't read it. I've only recommend to you, if you're going to put a notice out for a hearing or anything else, make the sign big enough so you can read without people getting run over if they got out to read it.
Well, thank you. And one of the reasons is we have a sign ordinance that says the signs have to be a certain size or smaller.
That's
You know, if we
bureaucratic.
make them bigger, the people complain. If they're too small, people complain. We just can't make anybody happy.
Right. I understand that. if we'd have got out of that car and read the sign 2 weeks ago, we may have known about this country store. But I am smart enough to know not to stop on Route 3 or that area and get out of my car and read the sign, all right? I'm
certainly-
not that dumb, all right?
No, I know. I wouldn't do it either.
So, because you're either gonna get rear end or run over, one of the two,
True.
all right?
Thank you.
All right? Thank you for listening to us, and please vote to move it east to
Thank you.
Harrison Crossing. There's all kinds of room up Harrison Crossing. So
Thank
we
you.
don't need a country store in our neighborhood. They do it Harrison Crossing, all right?
Thank you.
Now, we could have told them that a long time ago, but we didn't know about it.
Sadie Dye.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. My name is Sadie Dye. I live at 6166 Plank Road, Fredericksburg, Virginia, and I live in the Chancellor voting district. My husband and I have lived most of our lives in Spotsylvania County. Our property joins Mr. Ash's property, which is up for a special use permit that Mr. Ash wants to build the country store on. I suppose the county I support the county allowing him to establish his business and do not think it will have a negative impact on the Chancellor Village battlefield. I actually believe it will have many positive effects. I can't read my own writing. Let me address some of what I see as a benefit. This is not a big box store with a distant sign. Mr. Ash seems to want to fit into the surrounding area by having a design that does not stand out but blends in. He also appears willingly to work with the county to make changes that will be more visual pleasing. It will provide tax revenue to the county. We should support a small business. I cannot see how this will have a negative impact on visitors to the battlefield. In fact, it might attract visitors to the battlefield or allow visitors to spend more time at the Chancellorsville battlefield. They might enjoy the experience more if they can take a break without completely leaving the immediate area. There are a few other things you should consider. I have a map here. I have a map. I have a map here of the area compared to the housing development on the same side as the battlefield. Mr. Ash's business is a speck across a very wide road with a large medium. The housing development is a visual intrusion on the battlefield visitors' experience. Finally, this business will still be well away from the heart of the battlefield, which is further west. I ask that you approve Mr. Ash's report to build his business. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Did anyone else, even if you didn't sign up, wish to address the issue at hand, the application? Please do come forward and identify yourself and tell us where you live.
My name is Bob Morath, and I live at 12217 Delway in Creekside subdivision also. And I share the concerns of the earlier Creekside resident, but I also have a few questions. The first off would be this limited use permit. Suppose that the owner decided to sell his property. What would happen to the limited use on the event that he sold, for example, to a 7-Eleven or some other store, since you've called it a convenience store in this limited use permit? Would that be something that could be done?
We'll let them answer, but I don't think, once it's recorded as those requirements are in place, then they can't be changed. I mean, somebody else can change the name of the store, but you can't.
Couldn't, let's say, tear it down. Suppose you bought the store, and as a new owner of that property, I decided to tear it down and put up a convenience store of some other ilk.
You'd have to get a new permit.
Well, the use would continue, but the applicant here has agreed to, and there are conditions proposed that make it very specific with regard to architectural renderings, signage, and things like that. So it's hard to say what would or would not happen in the future. So it may be that a new permit or an amendment to the special use permit would be required for whatever new use comes through. But the basic use, of a convenience store would be able to carry through. But the additional specifics may make it difficult for somebody else to come in. But it's highly dependent on what may or may not happen.
Right, for example, it could never be a gas station. There's just not enough room, and it would require another permit.
Yes, that requires an additional special use permit.
The other thing I'd like to point out is if you're traveling west on Route 3, opposite that location, where they're proposing to have this slow-down 200-foot turn lane, it's my recollection that the road is quite hilly in that area, and especially during the evening rush hour, there's a very heavy flow of traffic there, and popping over one of those hills when people are turning is quite a hazardous situation. Another thing is, one of the people here mentioned the possibility that if they created this median, it would eventually be closed by VDOT because there's another 200-foot median further up. Well, the only two medians that are that long further up are the one that's going to the new fire station or the one just past it that goes into our subdivision, which if you've ever taken that turn, it's an uphill turn at about a 30-degree angle. You hit a stop sign with very limited visibility down the road. And I think that would be an especially hazardous type of situation. So in addition to Billy Braswell's concerns, I would like to add those two to your list. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for coming out. Anyone else? Very well, then we'll close the public hearing and allow the applicant, if he had any comments in response to anything that the public stated. You don't have to. So that's fine. Were there any other questions from the members of the commission? If there aren't any, then let's perhaps wrap this up. I'll entertain a motion that we approve the recommended application with all of the recommended conditions, with the exception of the mandate that there be a trail. Did anyone else, was there anything else?
I would just like to make a statement here. I have to abstain from this vote due to a conflict of interest, but I support your motion.
So is there anyone generally in agreement with that premise?
I make that motion.
Okay, the motion's been made.
I just have a concern. Patrick, when you were speaking about the landscaping, and you said that the landscaping would be with tall trees or whatever shrubbery, and it's not, what did you say about the landscaping? And the reason I'm concerned about that is these people, of course, that are concerned about the traffic and about the turns. And we can say today, okay, your tree is going to be so tall. In 2 or 3 years, your tree is too tall. And that makes it more dangerous when you're working into an area like Route 3 or wherever because of visibility. And what did you say about that?
The trees are going to be larger than usually required in the streetscape C buffer. On your screen is a kind of a depiction of their landscape plan, and you'll see that.
We don't have the floor.
Can I have the floor computer, please? Thank you. The sight distance is measured from where a car would be looking over to the left in order to pull out. And that's depicted right here. The landscaping is well to the south of that point. We don't foresee landscaping blocking anyone's views, and I'm sure the applicant would agree that they'd trim them should they need to be trimmed.
Well, I look at Route 1 at the Wawa there, and Harrison Road, Wawa, and the trees are so tall that it's very hard to even see the Wawa. And I understand maybe there are people and who want to say, okay, we want the trees because it blends in, it hides the building.
Well, Mary Lee, you know, that's because that's in the city.
No, sir.
The Wawa at Harrison Road, isn't that in the city?
That's ours.
That's ours,
That's
okay.
ours, yes, sir.
Well, somebody messed up. I agree, you can't see the Wawa.
Oh, you can't see the Wawa. And also on Road 17, Tidewater Trail, it's the same way. And it just bothers me that people, when those trees grow, I mean, I just said that a few minutes ago, and they do, and we don't take in consideration of what's going to happen down the road. And that really concerns me because it's putting the people who are in that area in danger, who want to come out there, and not only that, the traffic that's going in there. So I would just recommend that be looked at very, very close to make sure that we are not putting too tall of trees in that area, and maybe they should be a little lower.
It looks to me like it's probably 30 to 40 feet from the edge of Route 3 to the tree line. Does that sound about right?
That looks about accurate.
And so you could have 2 car lengths waiting to turn right out of that lane, and all of them would be able to see back, what, nearly 800 feet, 1,000 feet?
650 feet.
650 feet,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I just.
This way.
Yeah.
Your point is taken. We've brought this up before, and we've commented that the design standards need to be looked at with this landscaping
That's right.
because it's blocking views.
And when you talk about, that you're going up a
Yes.
grade, and there's a grade there, and bang, there's a car there, and it's over. And that's a safety factor. And I really think that should be looked at more.
Now, that's actually part of the zoning ordinance, though, isn't
Correct.
this?
I would think that
That's
we
what I'm
could
concerned
easily just ask them to clear their site distance. I mean, that is a safety concern, and
I don't, on this particular application, I don't see too much of a problem with the site distance and the landscaping plan here. But to Ms. Carter's point, in general, there is a concern that we have with the site distances regarding our design standards for landscaping. It's too intense. In fact, I look at this plan and I'm amazed at all the shrubs and plants we got to put in. It's, in my opinion, over the top. But I'm sure these are the design standards, and I'm sure Mr. Reyes can comment on that. But it's extraordinary.
I just
So-
think they should be looked at again.
I
Agreed.
I agree, and I think moving forward, it does need to be looked at, because, again, it's
Well,
outrageous.
and I would like to wrap up this, but maybe under new business, we could ask that there be a review of this in the new year. And one of the other things to consider is in the town center, when you're coming to turn either left or right, when you're coming out of the area closest to the Costco, the shrubbery there has grown so much that by the time your car is halfway out, you're definitely in the lane. Same as at the Harrison Crossing. Some of those little internal parking intersections are sort of dangerous because of the vegetation. But let's wrap up this first issue at hand.
One more comment. The other note I'd like to put on a new business, too, is the notification process, because the people are correct.
Okay, let's come back to
these-
that, because I did want to address it
Yeah,
as
very
well.
good, Alvin.
Is there a second to the motion?
I thought someone did.
No, did you, I thought you were going to.
I will.
Okay, Mrs. Carter
Second.
seconded. We'll proceed to a vote momentarily, but overall, I believe that the staff's conclusions are favorable to this. We certainly do want to have the new jobs. My suspicion is that this will be a successful enterprise and that there will be more than 25 new jobs created. And I had the privilege of visiting the store on Route 29, south of Culpeper, and it certainly seemed to be a prosperous enterprise, and ice cream is certainly something everybody can agree on in the summertime. And thus, without any other comments or questions, we'll proceed to a vote. A vote in favor recommends the issuance of the special use permit. There's one abstention with 5 in the favorable, so the recommendation passes. The next item is in fact new business, and the issue of advertising. I think this is a very good question to think about. In fact, I believe we had talked about in one of the earlier meetings asking the Board of Supervisors to consider in its legislative agenda for 2016 figuring out how it can get out of wasting all this money that it spends on newspaper ads, because clearly the residents of Creekside, how long ago did the ad run? It's been over a month, right?
No, sir, the ad ran 2 consecutive weeks prior to the hearing.
So last week and the week before?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's still pretty substantial.
Well, that's dictated by the Code of Virginia.
Right, that's what I'm saying. We need to have the Code of Virginia look at this, because even though it may have run for 2 weeks consecutively, the chances that people saw that, I mean, the subscription is dwindling.
And I believe one of their concerns was that they didn't get notified of the community meeting more so than this meeting.
Well, the community meeting, the applicants are mandated to notify people within what distance?
It's based on the traffic generation rates, but the maximum distance is a 2,000-foot radius of the property. And for this particular case, it was a 1,000-foot radius.
Because it's only 600 cars a day or something in
correct.
that neighborhood? Okay. Well, I think that's worth reviewing. Put some common sense thought to it. Did anyone else have any new business to ponder?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
You also made a comment about the DSM. I just want to bring you guys up to date. The DSM review is already on our work progress report to do. So we are updating the zoning ordinance, and that is one of the items that comes along in the sequential order. So as you guys have been reviewing zoning updates, the DSM is in line to be reviewed as well. So I just want to give you a heads up that is something that we're looking at.
Just define DSM. Public.
Design Standards Manual, which is what dictates the screening requirements.
Wonderful. Next item on the agenda is new business. Anything else in new business? None. Then public comment about anything other than the public hearing? Very well, seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
The motion's been made and seconded. The vote is, I suspect, unanimous. Takes a little longer for the machine to count them. Very well. It is unanimous. Mr. Thompson, did you wish to vote yes? May the record show that Mr. Thompson voted yes.